I was a kid, I lived abroad in Guadalajara, Mexico, and I was there for a couple years, and I attended a State Department accredited international school. So a global perspective has always been a part of my identity and my value set. And growing up, I knew that that was something that I wanted to actualize professionally. So I majored in international relations in undergrad, and then after that, I moved to Washington, D.C., where I worked for about 3 years. I worked for a year and a half at a firm, and then another year and a half at the DOJ. And in both capacities, I was doing international work and had a lot of really fun opportunities therein. I got to assist a case before the ICJ, the International Court of Justice in The Hague, in representation of Ukraine against Russia. And I was doing some work with Guantanamo detainees, and I also contributed to a cool project that kind of involved due process and antitrust and sort of like, competition agencies around the world. So I was doing a lot and trying to figure out my place in this big world that was international law. And I applied to law school, as we all do, if you're going to law school. And when I, was making my decision, I knew that I wanted to keep my international bend. And I knew that that was something that was important to me. And it was something that I wanted to contribute to my career in a really sort of, palpable way. And I, saw Duke's JD-LLM program, which to me was, I think, a perfect fit. It had a lot of what I was looking for and no added time. So it was a great deal, it seemed, but I was a little bit on the fence. So I emailed Professor Larry Helfer, who I now RA for, I'm a research assistant. And when I, reached out to him, he met me with warmth and attentiveness, as he does, I think, to this day. And he scheduled a call with me and told me about the program. And I think that it was that kind of energy and that kind of investment in mentorship that convinced me that not only was this a program that reflected what I wanted to do and my values, but also a place where I could really grow in those values. So I committed, and here I am. There are like 3 big things I think of when I think of the JD-LLM program here at Duke in International Comparative Law. Namely, I would say mentorship, and then specialist training, and then the student cohort. I think that those are the big 3 for me as far as what I've gotten out of this program. To kind of start from the top, mentorship, we have phenomenal faculty and alumni, and of course a growing network of JD-LLMs coming through the door here at Duke I know I'm going to be in touch with for years to come. As far as specialist training goes, you get to take international law your 1L year. So while your peers who are not JD-LLMs are taking all the regular doctrinal courses, you're of course doing that too, but you get a little extra something on top of that, and that's that you take international law that year, and so when you go into your summer, you have a little bit of an edge to add to your internship. And I think that summer is one of the most fun parts of the program too, because not only are you interning, likely in an international capacity, but you're also taking some classes in The Hague with our Duke Leiden program. So 3 is the student cohort, which I touched on a bit in the mentorship, but basically you're surrounded with a lot of like-minded people who are equally motivated to work in or contribute to international law. And I think that it's just it's a buzzing atmosphere. You get to really say things and feel heard by people who care about what you're talking about. And it's just a lot of fun too. You go to trivia together, you do thrift shopping, you explore Durham. There's a lot. So it's nice to walk in the door knowing that you're going to have that rather than having a question mark over whether or not you're going to find people that want to do the same things as you and talk about the same things as you. First class that I took my 2L year that really spoke to what I want to do with my career and my life was human rights advocacy with Professor Huckerby. It's a topic I care a lot about and something that I touched on briefly as a paralegal before law school, but didn't really get to dive into or really understand. As a paralegal, you're not doing the substantive work, so it was nice to come at it with a new framing and really get the details of what human rights advocacy is. Second, I think another class that I think back fondly on is international arbitration. That to me was, I think, a fun challenge. It was a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I am more human rights oriented, but I had done some arbitration work before law school and was curious to see what that would look like. Again, really understanding it as a student and not a paralegal. So when I took the class, we read countless cases, studied the arbitral clauses like really closely. And it was just, again, like I think really creative and a really fun space to sort of banter off of a brilliant academic mind. And that's something I think that you wouldn't find everywhere and something unique to the program. So I'm focused on human rights, international human rights, and this semester I think has been particularly helpful for that. I am in the wrongful convictions clinic right now, and a lot of that is very client-focused, narrative-based, and in human rights that is very important, and the ability to connect with people, the ability to elevate important stories and to tell those stories in a meaningful way. And through clinic, I've kind of had the chance to practice doing that. I'm also in an antitrust class right now, and that is sort of a secondary passion of mine. Before law school, when I was with the DOJ, I was in the antitrust division, the international section of the antitrust division. And I helped out on a couple trials and a couple investigations, but to, again, actually learn the doctrine behind antitrust as a student has been eye-opening. I can finally understand what my attorneys were doing, and I think it's going to remain part of my wheelhouse, at least for the next coming years, in a complementary way, I think, to human rights, because antitrust is all about consumer welfare and social welfare. So at the end of the day, they're not too far apart, even though they might seem that way on paper. I would likely say to keep in mind the reason why you're going to law school, and if that is international, then I think this program is a phenomenal way to remind you of that on the daily. I think in law school, it's really exciting. You get to learn about a lot of things and diversify your interests and your skill set. But I could see a world where you lose sight of what it was you wanted to do when you came to law school because you fall in love with something else. But the beauty about law and law school is that you can actually combine a lot of things. And I think that the JD-LLM program in International Comparative Law here at Duke is just a wonderful opportunity to signal to yourself and others that that is something that grounds your interests and that it does intersect, and that even if you end up loving antitrust, there's a world that you can combine antitrust and international law quite easily. And so I think as a prospective student, knowing that there's a platform, this program, that allows you to keep those doors open and allows you to, be among a group of students that want to do that too, I think that that's really helpful. Through my time in the program, I've not only shaped my professional identity in an international way, but also my academic identity. I've had the opportunity to now publish a piece on international law and international human rights law that is very meaningful to me. It's about the freedom of rehabilitative artistic expression at Guantanamo, and I have an upcoming piece in the Duke Journal of International Comparative Law about the punitive demolition policy in Palestine. So insofar as my academic identity, I'm really proud of where that's going, and I think that in large part that's probably due to the program. So I'm happy to be here for that reason too.